The New York Rangers are definitely going to have quite a few different moves to make this offseason if they truly want to get back on track to being a Stanley Cup contender. And with that being said, of course, they've got to re-sign a couple RFAs, and one of them being a very key player for this Rangers team for not only this past season, but of course, going forward as well. And that is winger Will Cuylle. Now, he is still very, very young, of course, still in his early 20s, but he ended up taking a massive step in his game this past season there, kind of becoming a breakout player as he really kind of blossomed into a true top six caliber forward. And also, not only is, playing with that kind of skill level of a top six caliber guy, with that all-around game as well, being solid defensively, good offensively, but also, if you watch him play, he brings so much physically and energy-wise. He's always out there looking to hit people. He's once again right up near the top of the NHL in the hits leaders, once again for back-to-back seasons, not just his rookie season, but also this season where he ended up taking that big step in his all-around game and really earned the trust of the coaching staff. And although, things definitely didn't go great for the Rangers, I think he was one of the kind of few massive bright spots on this team. I think he really had a good overall season, was a pretty consistent player, and I think really just kind of turned into that truly kind of top six caliber forward that I always hoped and thought he could potentially be. I watched him a lot back in his Windsor days when he was playing with the Windsor Spitfire in the OHL, going up against Brendan Hoffman on one playoff run there where they met in the Western Conference Finals, where, obviously Brendan Hoffman was still in the Flint Firebirds before he made the move to the Peterborough Petes. But in juniors, Will Cuylle was one of those guys who, definitely showed that physicality factor, but also was a truly kind of high-end offensive player. He wasn't just some, kind of third-line guy at the OHL level, so you always kind of thought he just had the potential to be a, decent bottom six guy in the NHL. He was a true star player in the OHL for Windsor Spitfire, was one of their top offensive guys alongside, Wyatt Johnston back then. So he's obviously a very talented offensive player as well, but this year we really saw that offensive game come into effect there with, that defensive play, the two-way game kind of taking a step up as well. He obviously got some opportunities on the PK there, which I thought was really great to see. He also just got a lot more ice time in general and got some better matchups, but I just think with the way he plays his game and the all-around game that he has, he can be a great top six forward for years and years to come. It is very tough to find players that, potentially can put up, that 50, 60, maybe even 70, maybe an 80-point mark here and there. I think around a point per game, a season in, season out, isn't completely impossible for a guy like Will Cuylle. Now, he's definitely a few steps away from that, but being at least a 50-plus point guy while bringing that physicality, you definitely don't see those players a lot. So I think having a guy like this in Will Cuylle, who is still so young, brings so much physically, has that 6'3" size, there has the defensive play, can help kill penalties, can help out so much offensively at 5-on-5, and here and there might get a little more opportunities on the power play as things go along in his career. But I just think with the way he plays his game, and it's just an all-around great game, there's not really one area in his game that I think is a massive negative or is really bad. It really needs a bunch of work. I think he's just an all-around really solid player. Offensively he's good, defensively he's good, and physically he is incredible. Once again, like I said, back-to-back seasons of being one of the top hitters in the entire NHL. So he is truly a pretty unique player. There's not many guys like him, so to have him on this Rangers team, I think is quite incredible, especially when we know how much this team lacks physically. I mean, you saw it in last year's playoffs against the Panthers, for example. That is a perfect kind of example there of the lack of physicality. And having a guy like Will Cuylle who's now able to be in that top six, because last season there, in that playoff run, he wasn't bringing a lot offensively. He wasn't bringing a ton in general. Obviously, he still brought some physicality, but just wasn't playing, the overall greatest. But this season there, I don't know whether it's a confidence boost after his rookie season or the development he did in the offseason, whatever it was, he ended up taking, obviously, like I said, a massive step in his development. And now the Rangers, after, trading for JT Miller this past regular season now, the team has, I would say, two top six forwards who, really do bring a lot physically. Now, Vincent Trocheck at moments can definitely bring some physicality and some toughness, but, mainly hitting-wise, you're looking at guys now like JT Miller and, of course, Will Cuylle, who can be true top six caliber forwards, but definitely bring that physicality. Now, I think on the back end there definitely is a lack of that, so adding some more size, toughness, physicality on the back end there wouldn't be the worst idea, but obviously having two really good, top six forwards now in Cuylle and Miller, JT obviously, I think that's going to be great for this Rangers team for the foreseeable future. But taking a look and kind of talking more about what his next contract could potentially look like, and my guess is probably going to be a something around like kind of a 2-year deal. Maybe it gets to 3, maybe it's 1, but I don't see it being more than 3 years. I think it's going to be that kind of a shorter term bridge deal where it is at 2 or 3 years. More likely 2 though is kind of my personal guess, and around that 4 to 4.5 kind of mil mark is where I'm guessing on that short-term bridge deal. So 2-year deal, let's say like 4.25 is kind of my guess. Something around there I think is pretty realistic. And what I think is realistic isn't necessarily what I would ideally like to see. Now, I don't think the Rangers are going to do this, but I think what's best for this team's kind of long-term future would be to kind of bet on Will Cuylle there and hand him a long-term contract, like a 6, 7, 8-year deal even. I would be more than okay with that if they handed him out some pretty decent money on a long-term deal, because I have the utmost faith in Will Cuylle to be a good or even potentially great player for years and years to come. I think worst case, he's going to be, about what he is right now, that 40, 50-point kind of guy, something around there, being a very physical player in that middle 6. But on the high-end side of things, I think he can truly be around a point-per-game player and bring that physicality still. Be a good penalty-killing winger as well, being an all-around just great forward. I think that he's what he can truly be long-term for this Rangers team potentially, and we'll have to see whether or not he gets there, but that's kind of why I really do think that ideally, yes, this team would go out there, hand him a long-term extension, bet on the upside, bet on the future of Will Cuylle there, and really put this team in a potentially great spot with this contract in the long-term future. But of course, with where this team is at right now, they're not going to do that, I don't think, because that's obviously, like I said, going to up the value, up the cap hit from what it would be if he were signing a 2-year, 3-year deal like a bridge deal, which is kind of what I'm imagining. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to give him a long-term deal, although if we do, I will be ecstatic because I really do have a lot of faith in Will Cuylle to be a great player, a great top 6 forward for years and years to come. So we'll have to see what happens there, but like I said, my guess is something around that kind of 2-year deal range between like 4 and 4.5 mil, something around there is what my guess is going to be for his next contract. He's an RFA, like I said, with no arbitration eligibility, so we'll see what happens there. He could get offer sheeted, which I pray doesn't happen there because that could put the Rangers in a pretty tough spot. And ideally, you go out there, like I said, extend him on a long-term deal, but really and truly, I just don't see that happening. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day. And of course, don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video, as it does help the channel out a ton as well, and I would really, really appreciate it. So let me know your thoughts on Will Cuylle as a whole. Do you think he's a good, great player? Let me know your thoughts on him. And also, what do you want to see his next contract be? Do you want to see it be ideally a long-term deal, although it may not be the most realistic? Or do you want to see it be personally like a short-term deal, like a 2-3-year deal around that kind of 4 to 4.5 mil cap it? Let me know your thoughts and predictions in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.